Okay.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us today, Governor Brown. I'm sure your schedule is jam-packed, but we wanted to talk about both testing and a little bit about Portland and just kind of where you see the future going, maybe a couple of bonus questions about the special session, if possible, all in
Okay.
10 minutes or less.
You can do it.
All right, here we go. First off, as far as the COVID-19, how important is testing, do you think, statewide?
I think it's critically important. As Oregonians have seen, we've substantially ramped up our testing capacity over the last few months. However, as folks are probably aware, we are seeing testing supply shortages in communities around the entire United States. We reached out to Health and Human Services folks last week to talk to them about the testing supply shortages we're seeing in Oregon. And we're doing everything we can to accrue more supplies and make sure that our hospital systems have adequate capacity to do needed tests to keep Oregonians safe.
Do you feel like there's enough testing going on now to get a sense for where the virus is going?
I think we have a really good sense of the infection rates of the virus. What I would say is this, as we move into the fall and school starts to open, whether it's Oregon State University or Portland State University, we want to make sure that kids on campus can stay safe, that professors can stay safe. We want to make sure that we get kids in early childhood education and that they can stay safe and their educators can stay safe as well. So I'd like to see us substantially increase our testing capacity. That's going to take some time. And we're obviously working hard to make sure that folks living in congregate care facilities, assisted living facilities, have access to testing as needed as well, and that staff can get regularly tested. So as you can see, just from Oregon alone, it's going to require a substantial increase in testing, and this is going to need to happen in every state across the country. That's going to take all of us working together, and frankly, it's going to take a really strong partnership with the private sector to build this additional capacity.
I was reading one of the most recent reports from the Oregon Health Authority citing the Institute for Disease Modeling, kind of their projections on where things are going. And even if rates stay the same, they expect that 1,000 to as many as 1,600 people are getting the infection every day in Oregon. What do you think of those numbers?
Well, the numbers are very, very concerning. My focus on COVID-19 is to make sure that Oregonians stay safe and healthy. And that's why we've worked really hard to implement restrictive measures across the state that will prevent the spread of the virus. Encouraging folks to wear face coverings as much as possible and requiring them in public spaces. A couple of weeks ago, reduced the size of informal social gatherings to 10 and under. And I did that specifically because we know from the numbers that Oregonians are getting COVID-19 from their niece's birthday party or having grandma's and grandpa's anniversary celebration, that these family gatherings, that these social gatherings are a major source of the spread. But here's where we can all make a difference, and we are truly all in this together, Pat. And that means that each one of us has to take personal responsibility, has to follow the 3 W's, from wearing your face covering to watching your physical distance to wash your hands. All of these can help, all of these safety protocols can help prevent the spread of the virus. And it's really key, right? I certainly, we're going to have to balance lives and livelihoods, and certainly don't want to take even more restrictive actions that we are having to take in some communities around the state. These are my, last option in terms of efforts.
Okay. Today, I believe the state, as far as overall infections, hit about 19,699. We've been doing 300 some a day. So tomorrow we might hit that milestone of 20,000 infections. What's your reaction to that?
Well, we certainly have one of the lowest infection rates in the country. I took very aggressive action very early on epidemiologically, and Oregonians have made really incredible sacrifices to flatten the curve. We are all going to have to step up our efforts if we want to get our kids back in school. And I think we would all agree that's exactly where our kids need to be in the fall. So all of us need to do our part to stem the spread of the virus.
And as far as kids going back in the fall, have you gotten much pushback on your criteria being so stringent on sending them back?
I get pushback from both sides. It's too stringent and it's not stringent enough. I certainly am in this post to make the difficult decisions. We're going to continue to make decisions based on science and data. And school this year is not going to look like normal. And my heart goes out to all the parents who are wrestling with the tough decisions that lay ahead. But I'm going to be very, very clear here. We need to keep our students safe. We need to keep our teachers safe. And we need to make sure that professional staff can be safe. And at the same time, we're going to have to make sure that every kid, regardless of who they are or where they live, has access to a high quality education. And that's going to be very challenging. Some schools, I hope, will have kids in the classroom. Some schools will be entirely online, comprehensive distance learning, and some will be a hybrid model. You'll see more localized approach. And I want to make sure that parents and teachers continue to make sure that their voices are heard at the local school district level.
Any chance that you will loosen those stringent requirements?
We're certainly working. Obviously, a one-size-fits-all may not work for a state with a geographic diversity of Oregon. And frankly, we have communities across the state that have had either 0 cases or very few cases. We're working with a group of legislators and county commissioners and public health officials in rural Oregon to see if we can't come up with a new metric, a modification that will allow them to get more of their kids back in school, given the low numbers of the virus that they have in many parts of that region.
What about the metro area? That's where most of the kids are.
Yes, I think you're going to see most of metro area start back online in the fall. We have just got to get our metro area infection rates down. But the department will be issuing an updated version of their guidelines on August 11th. But parents need to start making plans now. And I just have to say, I know there's a lot of folks trying to figure out, can we get grandma in to help out for a few hours? Or can our neighbor help out? This is going to be really challenging. And I just want to ask that if folks who don't have kids at home and have time to volunteer, want to encourage them to call their local school district to see if they can assist with volunteering, reading to a child over the internet so everyone can stay safe, or participating in gathering safety supplies or whatever the school or the district may need. But I just want to ask Oregonians to step up. It takes a village to raise a child. And this year, it's going to take an entire state to get our kids successfully through the school year.
But do you expect to loosen your criteria for the metro area?
I don't know at this point in time. We're going to continue to have conversations with public health experts and epidemiologists, physicians and nurses. Again, we want to make sure that students and teachers can stay safe. And we also want to make sure that kids get a good quality education.
Okay, moving on to Portland. Downtown has been hammered not only by the coronavirus, but also by 2 months worth of protesting. Is there anything the state can do to help those businesses down there?
Absolutely. We've been working with legislative leadership to direct coronavirus relief funds out to small businesses, not just in Portland, but around the state. Those dollars will continue to go out into our communities. We set up our small business navigator at the outset of the pandemic, and I want to encourage folks that might need assistance to call the Business Oregon office to get assistance there, either tools or support or resources. Also, it's my understanding that Paycheck Protection Program resources are still available. And for business owners that might need some financial assistance, they should call their local bank or credit union to see if they can get, I think it's more of a grant program, and get assistance through the federal government. They are changing the criteria basically on a regular basis. So even if a business owner wasn't eligible or didn't quite meet the criteria in March, they might be able to meet the criteria there. I also want to encourage Oregonians to shop locally. We are truly a state of small businesses. They are the backbone of our economy. And by shopping at local businesses, you help create jobs and spread the wealth, both culturally and economically.
Are you pleased at the way the tone of the protest seems to have changed?
Absolutely. Oregonians have truly stepped up. I am proud of peaceful protesters, not just in Portland, but across the entire state. They are issuing a clarion call for racial justice. This call is long past due, and appreciate their efforts to raise their voices. And it's time for us all to get to work to tackle the issues of racism in our criminal justice system and our policing systems.
And then as far as the special session, I've read that there's going to be significant cuts, but then I've also read that there's a bunch of sort of bureaucratic maneuvers that could be made so that there's really not that much specific impact. Do you have a prediction?
Well, we are tightening our belts at state government, just like households across the state have had to do so with the economic impact of the coronavirus. I think it's really important that we continue to fund those services that provide a safety net for vulnerable Oregonians, particularly our historically underserved communities. And we obviously, given that we're in the midst of a global pandemic, have to continue to provide health care to folks on the Oregon Health Plan. That's absolutely key. But I expect that there will be substantial cuts both this next week and in the future in order to meet the, frankly, what is roughly a $5 billion deficit for the next 3 years. We're keeping our fingers crossed in hopes that Congress will come through with additional aid for the states and for the local governments, but at this point in time, it's still the stall game in Washington, D.C.
Okay. And then just a final question about the coronavirus. You've been dealing with this every day since it started, I know, but when you look out to the future, does it ever end?
Well, certainly Dr. Fauci would say, we don't have the timelines on the virus makes the timelines. But I do think that we will see a vaccine, I'm hoping within the year. In talking to the vice president last week, he was on his way to Florida where Moderna is going to face 3 trials of the vaccine. So what I know about Americans, just like Oregonians, we're very creative, very innovative, and hopefully our entrepreneurial spirit will carry through and provide us with a vaccine sooner rather than later. But we are probably going to have to live with the impacts of the virus for weeks and months to come. And I just want to, again, reiterate that it's so important. Each one of us can make a difference by taking personal responsibility and making sure that we're protecting ourselves, protecting our family members, and protecting our neighbors and our community members.
Okay, that was pretty much what I wanted to cover. Is there anything else you want to, any bombshells you want to drop or anything?
Not today. Thanks, Pat. Stay safe out there.
Thank you, Governor. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.